I was player 320 on Beast Games, and the entire time I was on set, the only thing I wanted to know was who was flying the FPV drone around Raiders Stadium in Vegas, as well as in Toronto. You've all seen that iconic shot of Mrwho falling down our trapdoors as the FPV drone flies straight down the line. I finally found him. His name is Josh Medlin of Medlin Drones, and he is my guest on this week's episode of the Project Freelance podcast. Welcome to the show. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show. If it's your first time here, my name is Enagonio. I am a freelance videographer, photographer, drone pilot. I do a lot of things. I film rocket launches at SpaceX, and I was also on Beast Games as a contestant. And like I said, the entire time I was just trying to figure out who this guy was, and I'm so stoked to share his story with you all here on Project Freelance. Josh is going to take us through his journey into how he got into FPV drone piloting, how he came up with his idea for his game-changing head tilt mechanism. He's also going to be sharing with us how he got his job at Mrbeast. He will also be sharing some of his favorite shots that he's gotten while he's been working for Mrbeast. There's a lot that he can't tell us on this show because things are still in production or in the editing process. So if you want to keep following Josh's journey, I've put his links down in the description. If you guys are new to the show, please hit subscribe and let's dive in. Josh, thank you for joining me on Project Freelance. Welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself and what you do to the Project Freelance audience.
I'm Josh Medlin of Medlin Drone. I'm a FPV pilot primarily, and also sort of develop products in the space of FPV drones, and pilot for Mrbeast, I don't know the best way to put it, but creator of head tilt FPV.
Yeah. And I definitely want to dive into like that, because that is the thing that I was like, oh, I got to talk to this guy, you know? Yeah. And obviously the Mrbeast stuff, because I mean, people that don't know that are listening, I was on Beast Games. Were you in Vegas and in Canada? Like, did you do so you did the whole thing? Okay, great. Good.
I did Vegas, and then episode 1, a little bit of 2,
okay,
and then episode 5. So I was for the whole thing.
Got it. Okay. So take me back. Like, how did you get into flying drones in the first place? Like, did you start off as like a videographer? Like, what was your kind of trajectory into drones and then further into FPV? Because that's like another step beyond just like, you know, a Mavic or, Phantom, whatever, depending on how long you've been flying for.
Yeah. So I started, I guess like 9 years ago. Just for fun. I started flying FPV. I didn't fly traditional drones for like the first I think 4 years or 5 years of my flying, but it was just for fun. And FPV, when I started, was in super early stages, and so they didn't fly well enough to be kind of useful for much. Right. It was just for fun, pure form, just for fun. And
what made you jump straight into like goggles? Like straight into FPV rather than drone?
Yes, about maybe 9 or 10 years ago, there was a video. Oh my gosh, what's his name? I should know his name. Like Steel Dan. He got a lot of us inspired for FPV. But it was this video, and it was these guys racing drones through a forest, and I saw it, and I had just never seen anything like it. It was just instantly I was like, I need to do that.
Amazing.
And so at the time I was like just broke college kid, scraped together what I could, got together like a cheapy setup, and just started flying. Did racing for a bit, but gravitated towards freestyle, which is more like skateboarding for drones.
Sure.
And then eventually cinematic FPV became a thing. I was like, oh, damn, you can fly in awesome places and potentially get paid for it. And I was like, hell yeah. And so I started like a videography business with zero experience in videography. It was bad. It was bad. I was doing all the editing myself. It was just like friends' businesses at first, and then expanded a little bit and started getting some more regular work with some like local golf tournaments and like doing weddings and stuff like that. So I've done like a good bit of gimbal opping and stuff like that as well. Sort of learning as I go. Still learning. but yeah, and that was, I mean, I was a full-time software developer until this past January. So I'm only a year into being full-time.
Wow.
I was, yeah, double duty and for a long time. But yeah, and about a little over a year ago, I got involved with Mrbeast through a local pilot who just happens to now be head of camera. I didn't know that at the time. But
that's amazing.
The guy, I won't name drop him.
Sure.
He likes to stay private, but guy's been a awesome dude and a huge blessing in my life.
Very cool.
Sure.
So your education background is more in like the software side then, rather than like video production or film production?
No formal education in video production. Yeah, I was a failed engineer turned software developer, essentially.
Got it.
And now I'm kind of an engineer because
I'd say you're an engineer. Yeah, I would say. I would say. No, it's cool. You know, I have all kinds of people on this show, people that have formal education in their field of whatever it is that they do. Because obviously, I have different types of freelancers on here, from tour managers to musicians to kind of anybody and everybody that is in like a creative space that kind of built their own business. So it's always fascinating to hear like the background story of people and how they kind of got to where they are. And I feel like most of the time it's like kind of learning as you go. Like I have a bachelor's in film production, but like I learned everything after I finished school, because like they don't give you a camera and say, this is how it works. They're just like on a PDF, they're like, ISO is this. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying because I can't physically see it like changing in front of me. So I feel like a lot of us kind of learn in the field. And I think that's like one of the important takeaways of being a freelancer is like most of your education is ongoing as long as you want to keep going, so that's super cool to hear your background. So when you were like coming up in the FPV arena, were there any like major drone pilots that you looked up to aside from that video and like that you saw in the forest? Like I know there's like I think his name's like Jay Christensen. He's like pretty big. He just did a bunch of stuff with like NFL and like, so I'm curious to know if you have any like people that you kind of like look up to in the space.
Oh, for sure. I'm trying to think. I wonder what his pilot handle is. I probably know who that is.
I think I follow him on Twitter. I think it's, hold on, let me look while you tell me other people.
But yeah, there's been a lot of like, I've had favorite pilots over the years, and the transition from like freestyle to cinematic. But anyway, I mean, steel is a big one for all of us.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be very specific to FPV. I don't think many people will know this, but yeah, like Nurk, Gab 707, Andy Shin was a huge influence when I started developing the head tilt, and yeah, I mean, my favorite pilot is kind of like bounced around, but
sure. But the guy I was thinking of, by the way, Jaybird Films.
Jaybird, yeah, he's been absolutely.
I mean, Emmy award-winning, fucking, like his stuff is insane. Like he's just, it's next level, and like it's so inspiring for me. Like I'm just now getting into the FPV space.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, like so. My friend Joe Large, he films for like Nat Geo and BBC, and like he does a bunch of the like drone shows now. Like he just joined a team, actually the team that had that incident that happened like during Christmas. This kid got hit with a drone.
Unaware of this.
Oh my God, yeah. So they he like works for this team, and there was like an incident around Christmas that happened, and pretty crazy, but he wasn't there, thankfully. But just a horrible thing that happened anyway. But so he flies for like Nat Geo and a bunch of like, like Our Planet documentary type stuff. And so he kind of started getting me into the FPV space. But nice. I remember the video that like really like got me was that there's like a kind of like a walkthrough tour of a bowling alley that went like super viral. Yes. I saw that video and I was like, oh, this is cool. Okay. There's like so many options, and there's so many ways you can use them in like smaller spaces that are much safer than like a, bigger like Mavic or, even like a Air, whatever. So it's just been really cool to like kind of see the different styles that are out there, because every pilot's different, And so for you, when you first got started, how was like the motion sickness and like the learning curve when you first got in the goggles?
It was I remember a little bit of that early on. It fades pretty quick though.
Okay, cool.
Like, in fact, now it's weird. When I go on roller coasters, when I was young, I was fine, but now I've like learned to disconnect my vision from like what I'm experiencing, especially when I'm flying from like moving vehicles and stuff.
Oh, sure.
Allegedly. Listen,
I just flew off a boat, and I was like, oh god, like I was like, I can't look at my screen. I'm gonna fucking yak off the side of this boat.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it fades pretty quick though. At least for me, it has. Now I haven't. It's been years since I've like felt woozy, even when I'm in like something allegedly moving while I'm flying.
Allegedly. We'll leave it at that. So how did you transition from, engineering to, software engineering into like full-time? Like, how did you make FPV your full-time thing? Like that transition that's a big leap and a big risk to take as somebody jumping into like the freelance space. Like what was the like jumping off point that you were like, I can finally do this?
Oh, it was for sure Mrbeast. I mean, it's funny. I like had probably the best idea I'll ever have, like with the head tilt, and still like 2 years later, it was not looking like it was going to be viable as far as a full-time job. But it was one of those things where with videography and like piloting drones in general, where I just like knew it was something that I like was passionate about, and so I just kept doing it like in the background, like just in after work and stuff like that, and did that for years. And then when I got involved with Beast, suddenly it sort of was viable. And I remember, oh my god, I was in Croatia at this like awesome hotel looking at this beautiful sunset and like on the phone with my previous boss like quitting, and it was beautiful.
Wow. Like the greatest resignation ever.
Beautiful.
Man, that's amazing. Well, I mean, congratulations. That's obviously like a massive jump to take. And I remember like when I grew up overseas, and when I first moved back to America, I was like, I can't do a 9-to-5 job. Like it will kill me. It's like soul crushing for me. And I've tried like one or two like full-time things, and it never allowed me to be as creative as I wanted. And like, so now as a full-time freelancer, I get to travel and go all over the world with bands or with different like creators to capture content. And now I work I work with a group that captures rocket launches at SpaceX. So like
you mentioned that,
yeah. So we're like really big in that space. We're actually heading out in a couple days. On the 7th, we fly out to South Texas to go film the next Starship launch.
Hell yeah,
dude. And like, if you've never witnessed a Starship rocket launch, like my God, it is emotional every time. I'm just like, I can't believe this is possible. It just shows like the creativity and like the genius behind what engineering can do, and without the restrictions of like the government, because obviously NASA is very restricted in what they're allowed to like build. So it's cool. So to hear about like the engineering side of things is always so fascinating. So for you, what made you want to make this head tilt? Like tell me about this process of like how you came up with the idea, like what sparked it, and like actually making the thing happen.
Oh, gotcha. I will say this, I know you've told I'm sure your viewers of your background, a little bit more of your background, but I'm curious because we haven't spoken about this.
Yeah.
So after this, I kind of want to hear a little bit about you.
Absolutely.
But so it was actually like, and I think this is like, I don't know, how the last few years have kind of came around, I think is like a good like example of like why following your interests like just is the thing to do, even if it's not your day job, like to like, because it might end up being your day job. Basically, I was doing the videography on the side, but it all started because I just wanted to fly in cooler places. Like I would hit like motocross tracks up, and I'd be like, hey, I'll make y'all a video for free if you'll let me like come and film. And like coming and filming there would be me getting out the gimbal, getting out the Mavic, but then of course getting on FPV, and did that for a while. And as I started filming, especially like filming for like paid gigs where I like not paid very much, but but I was not flying FPV very much, and it's because like most like mom and pop businesses, they you know, if you're going to make a video for them, they're not wanting some crazy
like hype. Yeah. They're like, it's our soap store. Like, we don't need the dramatics.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would, I'd be filming that. I remember there was a distinct like point for me where I filmed my friend's like lawn care business, and like it was there was plenty of opportunities for FPV, but like I found myself barely flying to get what I knew we needed to get, and not being able to get shots that like anyway, I'd just be flying the Mavic for like most of the time I was in the air instead of FPV, and it was super frustrating. It was like and basically that frustration with like the limitations of FPV essentially was like what led me to try out the idea. And I mean, it was literally just because I was kind of failing in my mission to fly FPV more in cooler places, because I just wasn't flying that much because the shots I were getting were, which I mean, you know, I'm sure there are people out here who will hear that and be like, oh, fucking fly better. And it's like, yeah, you can fly better, but you can't.
Also, there's still limitations.
There's simply a lot of limitations when it comes to flying fixed angle FPV. And and so I just started thinking of the idea, and then didn't even try it for like probably 8-9 months, and then finished a project on my home, and after that I was like, okay, well it's time to like try this out. Researched it for a couple months, just trying to find anything of people trying it, and it was this weird thing where it's like this kind of obvious idea, honestly, and like an idea that didn't require me to like initially try it to design anything. There was already someone who had like the little tilt mount. There was already this open source project for head tracking, like a little Arduino head tracker. And I just like literally anyone could have done this, but for whatever reason, like it just took me and the conditions that I was in, which was like frustrated with like the progress of not only a business, but like the amount I was flying and stuff, and just tried it out. And then ended up discovering like kind of a game-changing technique essentially. And just went like kind of head down for a couple years, like just literally like sitting in this room behind me for a long time, building stuff, designing stuff, just all that. And like it's been a slow adoption from the community, but it's finally getting pretty strong. It definitely is something that's like used by a lot of people now, and like has like gotten some grip. But yeah, I probably tangented off of the initial question.
No, you actually nailed it. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I wanted. And it's like you saw a problem, and there was a way to solve that problem. And even if it might be slow to be adopted by the community right now, like the community still helps you get there by that open source project, and like people already kind of like sort of like giving you the puzzle pieces, and you just kind of had to like put them all together with your own touch, you know? So it's cool. And it does seem like a no-brainer. Like, why hasn't this been an option? You know, it's like the things on your head already, and like, you know, a fixed camera, just there's so many limitations with that. And the fact that you were able to like create this, and I think that it's only going to help the community of FPV pilots around the world, you know, and I wish you the most success with this, because as somebody that's getting into FPV, I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Like, obviously, like, I want that to be an option to be able to like tilt the camera, you know? So it's very, very cool. So I do want to ask, like, what's like, have you gotten some like weird requests for like FPV flying? Like, what's like some of the stranger like places you've flown, or like cool, maybe some of the cooler places you've flown?
I mean, there's always some like weird stuff. Like we did it's out now, so I can talk about it a little bit. But like we did a collaboration with the Stokes twins, and at one point I zip tied a arrow to my drone and flew it through these like balloons that they were trying to pop. That was a weird one. I'm trying to think of, I don't know. I guess that's probably the weirdest. The coolest is kind of hard to say. Like I'm super fortunate to be involved with the Mrbeast team, because like it's an amazing team. Like the people, they're really good about good people. It's awesome. And but also just we do these crazy things. And I don't know, like one thing that comes to mind was this video where we did like protect the yacht, and at one point we like had like trebuchets, machine guns, fireworks, real cannons, just I honestly I'm forgetting flaming rocket arrows.
Of course, how could you forget the flaming rocket arrows?
And there was this one shot in it where I think it was they had the flaming rocket arrows, the fireworks, and the cannons were all like firing at once at this yacht. And for the shot we wanted, essentially I was cueing the cannons for when I got to them. And oh my god, when I was sitting there and like I was like got to the shot and the shot was going perfectly and I was like fire, and like the cue like went well, but that like moment of like cueing fucking a volley of cannons to go off, pretty cool.
That's pretty sick, man. That's like every video game player's real life dream, you know, and you're getting to like capture that. And it's so funny. Like I remember there was some video or podcast that Mrbeast Jimmy was doing, and he was talking about how like he's like, I really got to get more behind the scenes people to film some of this stuff. And I'm like, yes, because I want to hear these stories. Like this is cool. Like this is, and like as somebody that makes behind the scenes for bands making their albums or bands on tour or like these rocket launches at SpaceX, like behind the scenes is like my name. My middle name is literally behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like I love capturing that kind of stuff. And because like these are the stories that I find fascinating. Like the video, the final product is sick, but like, how did you get to this? Yeah. Like somebody had to come up with these ideas, you know, like it's just the process is always been so fascinating to me. And I think it stems from like watching the How It's Made TV show back when I was a kid. Just like, oh, it's so cool to see how like Slinky is made, or you know, whatever the product is. So it's just been so fascinating to me. So speaking of weird jobs, I'm on a bunch of like Facebook groups that are for like, I need to hire a drone pilot or a videographer or whatever. And something popped up on my feed today, and I'm just going to share it with you because I think that you're going to find it also hilarious. Okay. So the girl posts and she said, not a job post, just wanted to get some thoughts on this lead. Just got an interesting request. From the description, the client seems like she only wants to take photos and videos of a drone circling her house and report it to the police and FAA. She's based in New Jersey, where all the drone sightings are right now. Okay. So it seems like she's trying to like stage a drone sighting to get like attention, but like without realizing that like that's a federal crime to like falsify you know a report. But like as a drone pilot, like what are your thoughts on this? Because this is probably the most wild thing I've ever come across. Wild. Pretty crazy. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Oh my god. I wonder if/who took that gig. Or so the girl said that it was like on like a like bark.com. It's like Upwork. It's like another freelancing site. And she said, I'm not applying to this, but because you have to pay for the lead if you like take the lead. Like you have to like bid for leads basically. Gotcha. So she was like basically asking like, what would you do like in this situation? She was asking for like people's opinions. And I'm like, you should just like just see what's up, like see what she's actually trying to do, because it's kind of fascinating. And then like you could always like turn it on her and just like report her to the, you know, but then there's like a whole other mess of things. I just thought that was like one of the craziest drone requests I've ever seen online, and I've seen some pretty weird things, but that's got to be at the top. Yes, yeah, that's pretty wild. Best of luck to that. Yes, 100%. So for you as a freelancer that, you know, went from kind of doing it as side gigs and whenever you had time to doing it full time, how did you find your value as a pilot? Like, and like how much to charge people? You don't have to say specific numbers. I'm just curious, like what was that process like to get it to go to full time for you? Yeah. I mean, it's been tricky navigating that side of it for sure. And I was in a situation where, again, things weren't viable, and then got involved with Beast, and it is now. And they have like, you know, set rates and stuff like that. But
when I was doing like local gigs more and stuff, it was I don't know. I honestly struggled with this a lot, and now I kind of have set rates, but you know, I'd just be doing like work for just not even worth the time and effort it gets put in. And I think a lot of us do that early on, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, only thing I can that comes to mind with that is like one of my last gigs I did before getting involved with them was with this like golf tour, and we did this live event, and important to discuss rates beforehand, even with a recurring client, because especially if they're asking for something like different than what you're normally doing. And we did this like live stream thing where like I had to be up for like 7 hours straight, just like moving with this like production team they hired and stuff. And given that they brought a production team in instead of it just being me, like gimbal-opping and droning and just everything, I was like, okay, well, so they must like have serious money for this, so I'll charge like a reasonable rate. Anyway, and yeah, that ended up being a weird situation. Still don't think I've been paid for that. But it was my mistake for creating that situation and not discussing ahead of time. It's just is a bad situation. But I mean, it's no bad blood there. Like, still like a lot of appreciation for them. It's just I guess they just weren't expecting it, and like definitely on a shoestring budget. Even if they are bringing in bigger teams, I guess. But
I'm guilty of that too. I've definitely dealt with that situation a couple times, and it is definitely like, now like this is how we learn how to do things better and become better business people, and like in a team situation as well. But yeah, I mean, I always tell people like you should for sure, one, get a deposit for anything you do, especially if you're freelancing, and then two, like definitely discuss rates ahead of time, because that can definitely come back to like bite you in the butt at the end, and nobody wants that. So let's talk a little bit about Beast Games. Obviously, this is still an ongoing thing, so we can only say so much as far as like the episodes that are out. But so from your perspective, because obviously I was a contestant, so let's start in Vegas. So in Vegas, when we all entered the arena, like from your perspective, like bring me into your brain and like your vision and your lens, essentially. Like, what was that like from where you were standing?
It was definitely a unique experience. So we were perched up on like the side, like in the stands, like about a level up was our like drone station. And when y'all came in, it was a lot of different like sort of things happening at once. But for me, it was like just so unreal to have that many people, I guess, like in a area like I don't even know how to explain it, but like at one point y'all started chanting, and like when 2,000 people start chanting in a stadium that's otherwise quiet, that crap. Oh, it was like, I remember at one point like just sitting there and you guys were like chanting "Beast, Beast," and I was like "Beast, Beast, Beast." It was sick. That was cool. And then Vegas was first time flying in a space that had a spider cam, or like
cable rig.
Cable rig. Yeah, exactly. That was, and so it was a combination of like being extremely excited to just be there amongst like all these contestants and all the big production, but then also just like nervousness of having to fly in the airspace of a spider cam, because that is you cannot see those cables. Like,
I mean, they're meant to be like invisible, like for the actual camera, so the camera doesn't see them. So I mean, that's just an added layer of difficulty and obstacle, and then you've got 2,000 people that you're not trying to like crash into as well if something goes wrong.
It's just 2,000 sort of variables. Like flying through that crowd was definitely nerve-wracking, but like kind of cool. But it was just like one of those things where like when I was flying, especially when I got into the crowd, like at below head height, in between people and stuff, it's just like this crazy like thing where I'm like trying to get the shot, but I'm also like just sort of in the back of my mind tracking everybody, seeing like what they're doing, if they're about to run in front of me, something like that, or if they're gonna like swat at the drone. So it's just like this constant like is very like risk mitigation minded, I guess, but while trying to get cool shots. I don't know.
I mean that makes you a good drone pilot. I think like I think that risk mitigation is always something that we have to keep in mind. And I mean it's even in like pilot training when you go to get your Part 107. That's like one of the things that you have to have as a pilot, just in general. So it's so interesting. I think I mentioned this in the email or my initial message to you. And so we're mid, production. And the only thing that I'm thinking is like, I got to find out who this FPV pilot is. Cause like he's got the coolest job in here, and, there's camera ops everywhere and there's, we're sleeping on the floor and there's just so much going on and we're exhausted because like we don't know what time it is. We have no connection to the outside world. And I was like, but the whole time I was like, I got to find out who that guy is. So finally we get through all the games and we chant, we get through the platform game and we're like, we're going to Amazon Prime. Yes. And so we're like, they give us our Raiders jersey or Raiders shirts and we take that photo and we're all kind of like dispersing, waiting to go get on the bus. And I walk over to the guy that's taking the spider cam off the cables.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, yo, sorry, like who's your FPV pilot? And he looks at me, he's like, I can't tell you. And I'm like, why? And he's like, cause we have more Beast games to film and like you can't know the crew because it could somehow maybe help you in the game somehow, or you could like take a liking to a certain contestant and then like focus on them too much. So I understood like after the fact, like why, but I was like, damn, I really hope that somehow I can figure out who this person is. And thanks to one of the guys doing behind the scenes in Vegas, like he, interviewed you, and the way I found you was thank God you had a freaking sticker on your Pelican case. And I was like, I got him. So I'm like Googling, I'm like, Medlin drone, how do I find the Instagram? So that's how I found you. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, so that was like, thank God somebody was doing behind the scenes, like back to the behind the scenes thing. Like, this is why, because it allows for these kinds of like connections to happen, and the networking behind it is just insane. But so let's go to Toronto. So I got out in the first platform games. So I was in the first row that fell through our trapdoors.
Oh, you mean like the Domino one?
The Domino one.
Oh, you
so
were
I was in that row.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
So like, of course, everyone's like, that was the sickest shot in the entire show. So tell me, like, from your perspective, because for me as a contestant standing on one of those platforms, like, and I talk about this in my like breakdown video about that game. I saw maybe like 30 people in front of me fall, and then I was already falling. So like my brain could not process the speed with which things were happening when we finally, because we were like kind of sitting around a lot just between games and between shots just for production's sake, and that's something that isn't really like obviously shown in the show. But there was a lot of that. There was a lot of like sitting around, and if you aren't in production, you don't understand how production works. So I think that affected a lot of players in Vegas. And that's why a lot of people left. And I was like, thankfully, like I've been on a lot of sets, and whether it's as an actor or as somebody in production, so I understand that side of things. So I think that helped me as a contestant, like mentally stay in the game, because I like understood the process a little bit more. But yeah, the dominoes, like, that was probably the craziest experience that I've ever had. Like, because that's not like a normal thing to just fall through a fucking trap door. You know what I mean?
Definitely not a normal thing.
But for you, like, how did you guys come up with that idea to fly the FPV straight down that row? And like, what was that like from your vantage point?
I mean, they have like, we have a big team, like including like people on creative and stuff. And so like, the Domino idea was like that just came from like people in creative, and then and to camera, and so I mean it was just a shot they like told me they wanted, and it was one of those things where I mean I knew a little bit ahead of time that we were doing this, like the Domino shop, but like it's not like we did like a test run or anything.
Sure.
Like the only thing I did, I don't know if you remember this, is like right before we did it, while we were still like kind of waiting on things to happen, 1,000 people. Trying to get 1,000 people in a room where nobody has to use the bathroom and nobody
It's
has
impossible.
to is very difficult. So
The dude next to me on this platform had like cut his finger open, so every like 30 seconds he had to have a medic come over and rewrap it because it just kept bleeding through his fucking. I don't know what happened, but like they had to keep like checking on him, and I was like, "What? We're never gonna film this because this dude is just fucking around."
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they described the shot they wanted. And I gave some feedback on like what I thought would both look cool and work. And we did a couple like kind of test runs where you guys were all standing there. And I don't know if you remember this, but like right before we did it, I did like 2 runs where we knew it was going to be 5 seconds, like 5 seconds from start to finish. And so basically they queued me up and they did like a countdown where they were like 3, 2, 1, go, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Oh, wow.
And I tried to like be at the end by 5,
Wow.
or at the 5 seconds and stuff. But you guys were still standing there, so it's not like I could like actually do the line and get in there.
You don't know like the speed with which we're gonna fall to like track us. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because they say 5 seconds, but you don't know if it's actually 5 seconds. Like,
right.
Yeah, thankfully from like watching the earlier single drops, I think there were some single drops before then because I had a feel for like because we're on comms and stuff, and so you hear over the radio when they're like 3, 2, 1, drop. And I saw, from a few examples of that, I saw like the delay between when they say drop and it actually drops.
Actually,
yeah, which wasn't much, but when you're talking about like a high speed shot like this, super like super important. And yeah, it was one of those things. We knew we weren't doing it twice.
100%.
We knew it was a critical shot. It was my camera lead was like, this is probably the most like important shot of your career so far. It would be a great thing to say to someone. Anyway, I mean, we did the couple test runs and then just a setup for it, and of course the way things always happen, because we do like, even though yes we take pauses for production, they are really big on everything being real and like it's like, I don't know. So when they were about to start, Jimmy was interviewing the first contestant, and I was sitting there hovering above them. And FPV drones can't hover very long, especially my setups. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, please. I'm like,
talk faster.
Yeah. And then finally, it by the time it actually happened, I've gotten pretty used to like the things we do and stuff, and normally I don't get like. Normally I'm pretty good with like breath work and stuff like that. I gotta stay like as calm as I can. But for that shot, I felt my chest, every heartbeat was just like doosh, doosh. And anyway, I don't know. I honestly, And then the shot was, I didn't know if it was gonna work or not, but I just remember the feeling right as it was about to happen of like kind of just feeling like kind of a dog, like a racing dog about to like bump out. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but
probably felt like we felt in the flag game. I was standing on the line and my legs were shaking. And after I got my flag, I was like, I could never be in the Olympics. I am freaking out. Like I was freaking out. I wanted to go for like a higher flag number. I ended up with 320, but like I wanted one in like the 600s. And it got to the 300s. I was like, I can't stand here anymore. This is horrifying.
Yeah,
it was so dude. It was so nerve wracking. And so I'm sure I can relate in that aspect of like, let's just go.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just like kind of that feeling, and like, I mean, I don't know, like I just remember as it was happening, I was like, oh fuck, it's actually perfect. I was like, this is perfect. Like, and I don't know. I mean, it wasn't. There's always, I mean, there's never the perfect shot. Like when I go back and review it, I can see a little bit of like altitude bobbing.
Sure.
But like, good enough. Like
it was perfect. It was perfect. Yeah. From a viewer's perspective, it was a beautiful shot.
No,
you absolutely killed that, and like, it's crazy. Like now looking back at everything edited and like actually getting to watch the show that's complete after being a part of it, and like it's so funny. Like I'm sure you get hit up all the time and by people that know that you work for him, and they're like, dude, that new video was sick. But like the amount of like DMs that I've gotten and text messages from people that are like, I just saw you on an Amazon Prime commercial, like what? It's like, you know, people that you're not really friends with that are now like, hey buddy, like come on, man. People from high school are like, like, dude, I don't even know you. Like, it's crazy. But it's definitely like, I think comes with like the territory of like being a part of a production that is that, you know, globally well known. I think it's just like a part of it. So I know you've got a lot coming up that you can't talk about on the Beast team, of course, because ongoing productions and things. I know that he just rented out the pyramids. Like, I didn't even know that was like a thing. I hope you had something to do with that. I know you can't talk about it, allegedly. But I hope that I can't wait to see that video. I'm sure it's going to be insane. But is there anything outside of Beast that you can talk about for 2025 that you're excited about, whether it be on the build side with Head Tilt or just other production type things that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, as far as production stuff, there's like a couple like local gigs that I'm in talks with. Nothing firm, honestly. Like, I mean, Beast will probably be, again, the majority.
Sure.
Like, same as last year, the majority of the work I do. So I'd say on my end, other than that, it's just, let's see, couple different areas, like, with the Head Tilt and stuff. I got, you know, the store, which is like kind of an ongoing thing. But it's tricky because ever since I've gotten involved and started like with Beast and started traveling a lot with them, my project just kind of suffered, which sucks, but it just is what it is. Like, it's not financially viable for me to focus all my beans on that.
Sure.
As far as like just selling to other people, because it's such a niche market. But I'm working with a STEM program, and called like I think I could talk about this. PCS Adventures, which is they provide STEM programs to schools in the U.S. and basically they have a drone offering that they're revamping, and I am they're using my tilt gimbals, but also I've like came in basically as a consultant for the whole thing and like the whole build and all that, and like so that's pretty cool. I'm kind of excited for that. Definitely would be cool to see kids like flying FPV with something I designed, and I in that consulting journey, I'd say I've ended up designing the frame as well, which is the first frame I've ever designed, and so it's kind of like this whole drone is kind of like my design, and like so that would be cool. Hopefully it works. I think we're far enough along that I'm pretty confident we're gonna reach the end, but we've also been working on this for like a year, so we'll see. But
great things take time.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's anything I've learned, it's that.
Yes. So that's ongoing. There are some wholesalers who want to carry my stuff. Trying to talk to them and stuff. I don't know. I occasionally do some bulk orders, but it's kind of rare. But I don't know. So I guess bulk orders and the STEM program stuff and like wholesaling is kind of like a 2025 horizon other than Beast.
Love it. So my last major question for you is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started this journey?
Big mistake I made early on. I think probably a lot of people do this, but especially I did, because I didn't know anything about videography. I started just, I think I learned a lot of good things, be it trying to do it all myself, but in that time, like in the early years of trying to do it, I didn't like try to collaborate with people nearly enough. Like even things like the 48-hour film competitions and stuff like that. Like those, you may not 90 maybe 95% of the people that you interact with are people who are like either not serious or just like someone you're not going to end up working with again. But when I started going to local film meetups and like stuff like that, like I very quickly, and it was kind of it. Unfortunately, I've kind of these connections have kind of been a little lost because I've just been gone for like most of the year. But that was a really critical point for me that I wish I had started doing sooner, which is just like getting involved with your local film community, like because that's what's gonna build you the network that you need to be able to survive. If at least in my experience, that is about the biggest sort of film lesson is just to go and like talk to people and let them know you exist and learn from them, things like that.
Definitely. I did a lot of that when I lived in like Los Angeles and Southern California. I was out there for like 8 years, and that's kind of where I like came up as like a photographer, videographer, drone pilot, kind of everything. And there were like photo meetups every week, so you could just like go out to wherever they post the flyer address on Instagram. It was very like Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift style. They like send you the time and location, you show up, and there's cars and hot rods and models and cosplayers and fire breathers and like smoke grenades, just anything and everything that you could imagine, just in a random place downtown LA. So I really learned like a lot about networking and how to capture things like run and gun style, which I think is kind of my forte as a documentary filmmaker, is that run and gun style, being able to capture things in the moment as they happen and not like having to redo things, because in life we don't get to redo things. Like perfect example was that Domino shot. Like we're not gonna get back. We're already like sad that we're leaving the show. Like we're not gonna fucking redo that shot. Sorry, can we just reset one time? We would have been like, absolutely, fuck you. Fuck you, Josh Medlin. No freaking way. Tell him to figure it out. Do it in editing. Fix it in post, But,
sorry, guys, I forget to hit record.
My worst nightmare. Oh my God.
But anxiety.
Yeah, for real. But super excited to see the rest of Beast Games and find out who won. Episode 4 just came out when they all get to the island, and we have in the group chat, there are thoughts and feelings for sure about the people that got picked to go. We got opinions, but it is what it is. But it's cool. I'm excited to see how the rest of that show turns out, and super excited for you. And I'm very happy. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me and my audience here. Like, I think that this will be very inspiring for a lot of people, myself included. And selfishly, like, this is cool for me as well to get to chat with you and pick your brain a little bit more.
Same.
If people want to get a hold of you about your product, or if they want to maybe collaborate with you on something, or just follow your journey online, where can they do that?
On socials, I'm at Medlin Drone, like MEDLIN Drone. medlindrone.com if you want to see the project.
Well, guys, that's what it takes to work for Mrbeast, and that's what it takes to level up as an FPV drone pilot in a very competitive industry. Josh is paving the way for a new generation of drone pilots that are probably watching YouTube videos like Mrbeast's, and they're seeing these insane aerial shots, and they're like, wow, I want to do that now. Josh probably doesn't even know that he's inspiring the next generation of drone pilot through his time at Mrbeast. So give it up for the guy, give him a follow on social media. And if you are an FPV drone pilot that is looking for something that is game changing, check out his head tilt contraption. Contraption makes it sound like it's in a Saw game or a Saw movie, but it's a real life, and it is changing the game of how FPV drone pilots are able to capture iconic cinematic imagery. So if you guys are looking to upgrade your gear, head over to Medlin Drones website. I'll put it down in the description. And like I said, give Josh a follow, support what he's doing at Mrbeast, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Project Freelance. I've dubbed 2025 the Great Adventure. So if you'd like to follow me on my journey, I will put my links down in the description as well. And if you would like to hire me to tell your story, you can hit me up on my website or via email, both of which are also down in the description. This has been Project Freelance. My name is Enagonio. I'll talk to you guys next time. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out and go create something. Happy New Year, everybody.